Most of us aspire to get a good job, enjoy our spare time, and retire in comfort. And then there are the outliers. People doing weird and wonderful things and ignoring the whole system. This series is about pursuing dreams against all odds and with great success. It's about why some people choose no ordinary life. Knit one, purl. It's been a long time since my grandmother sat me down to teach me how to knit. And about the only thing I've ever created was a foot-long scarf big enough for a cat. Basic knitting is fairly simple though, and to be honest, quite relaxing. But if you want to up your knitting game, you need to try crochet. Now before you start shouting at your TV that crocheting requires a very ordinary life, let me introduce you to Sortori, who's taken her crochet skills and her career to a whole new level.
I started off just doing my own independent designs and sharing them with people who are interested in crochet. But in 2020, I was offered my first book contract, which was just for a book based on textured stitches. But at the exact same time as that happened, I also was offered to write a crochet book for the Wizarding World for Harry Potter.
Yes, you heard that right. Warner Brothers hired Lee to design a crochet book featuring Harry Potter characters. But hold on to your sorting hat, there's more.
Shortly after that, I did the Friends crochet book, and then Pokemon happened at the same time as the Friends book, so I did a Pokemon crochet book. And now I'm working on online collections for a yarn company that I work for called Lion Brand Yarn. So we're doing Stranger Things, Schitt's Creek, and Sesame Street right now, and we're going to be working on more throughout the year. My mom and dad were divorced, and my mom was on welfare, and my mom had 5 kids, and I was the youngest, and we were very poor. And she kind of looked around and decided I need to do something. So without having graduated university yet, she went back to school as an adult single mother and finished university and then went to law school and finished law school, graduated law school, and became a lawyer arguing in robes in court in Toronto. She's a fascinating person. And so for my whole life, like, I grew up really poor, and she became a lawyer when I was a preteen. So all of a sudden we had a minivan, which we never had a car before, or we had a stocked fridge, which we never had before. It makes you appreciate, one, the kind of growth from one to the other. And it's also, as you grow up, you are so motivated to do anything because you know your parent can do anything. So I started doing crochet when my children were really small. And then I was kind of in my jammies one day scrolling on my phone, and I saw a job opportunity pop up for a crochet magazine. And they were just looking for an intern position to do social media. So I was like, I'm just sitting in my jammies scrolling, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to apply. And it's just those like small moments of extreme bravery where you just have no right to do this, but I'm going to go for it. And I got the job, so I got a job at a crochet magazine, and that kind of spiraled into that blossoming of, you know, my crochet career, where I found so much joy in it. I learned a ton, and I ended up becoming assistant editor of that magazine. Full disclosure, the motivation behind everything that I've done so far was to help my family stay comfortable and, you know, pay for the bills and everything, but also My husband, one of his biggest regrets was not going back to school. He didn't get a chance to finish university, and we had children really young, so it was really difficult to kind of take that leap and go back to school and actually finish. So I really just tried really hard to do as best as I could in my work to get him through university. And so that was the motivation behind everything, was my family's happiness. Watching my mom and her journey, and she's failed sometimes, she's made mistakes, but there's nothing more motivating than seeing somebody really accomplish all of that and make you realize that you can do it too, because they did it.
Not Slytherin, not Slytherin, not Slytherin.
Zoe, you know that's a crochet hat, not the real sorting hat.
Thank you, Lee. I do, but it's so realistic looking.
Thank you.
How do you get from looking at a picture of the hat from Harry Potter and then turning it into a hat that actually moves and people can put it on and follow the pattern and make it from scratch?
It's actually a really fun process. So a lot of the time it will be looking through all kinds of still photos of the item. So in this case, the sorting hat from the movie, and looking at, you know, the actual film itself, and then doing sketches and deciding if it needs to start from the top and go down or from the bottom and go up. But basically it's just kind of doing it one row at a time and hoping it works out.
Well, I've never crocheted before. So would you mind teaching me just sort of the basics of it?
Absolutely. With crocheting, there are only two things that you need to start. So we're going to start with a crochet hook, which yours is here.
Got it.
And we're going to start with some yarn. This one is kind of like a little bit on the chunky side, but not too chunky. Okay. It's good to learn with like a medium kind of thread, something that's not too small where you can't see it, and nothing that's too huge. We're going to start with something called a slip knot. And a slip knot is a knot that can get bigger or smaller, kind of like a noose, like that kind of knot. And you can tell that, like, if you pull on the yarn end, it's going to get smaller. And that's actually going to go and hug our hook. So we're going to start with something that is the building block of crochet. Almost if you were building like a Lego tower, you need the base. So we're going to build chains. And the chains are how you start any crochet project, no matter if you're making a Cookie Monster or a sorting hat or a blanket. So we're going to, it's pretty straightforward. So what's going to happen is you can hold the yarn by twisting it around your pinky finger. And then under your two middle fingers and over your index finger.
Oh, that just happened like magic.
And then you're going to rudely point with your index finger and pinch the cut yarn right underneath your slip knot. So not like the working yarn, but right underneath your...
Oh, this.
Yep, the cut part.
My gosh.
So what happens is we just created tension, so you can kind of twang it. And that's the indication of good tension. So you're holding it properly and you're able to twang it. So what's going to happen now is you should be able to let go of your hook and still have all of this going. And like a violin bow, we're going to use the tool like this.
Am I a natural?
Yes.
I feel like this is really
so good. You're doing
you.
amazing. So now the only job is to get yarn into the hook and drag it through the loop. So what's going to happen is you're going to yarn over. So you put your over. Yeah, you got it. And then you're going to use the hook to drag it through the loop. So keep holding, keep pinching, and drag it all the way through and bring it back to the middle to the working area. So you chained one, that's it. So you made one chain.
I did.
Oftentimes a blanket will need 200 chains.
You know, I'm just picturing the way your mind must work, going from a 2D image and then making it into this tactile thing that's not just smooth and a very easy medium. You're not like sculpting something out of clay, like you're making it out of yarn. How do you do that?
That's a good point, and you actually hit upon kind of the way I think about it, which is like sculpting, but with crochet, and especially with an amigurumi, which is a doll or, you know, like a toy, it is a lot like sculpting, but you're kind of doing it one stitch at a time. It is kind of like fabric Lego in some way, you know, depending on what size of thing you're making. But it's also a little bit of a challenge in that once you make the fabric, it's very difficult to say like, oh, I actually don't like the second row.
Yeah.
And go back because you have to take it all
have to unravel
apart.
it
There's no
all.
way to fix something.
Oh, really? There's no going back?
There's no going back. So
Okay.
there's something in crochet called frogging, and it's because you have to rip it. So ribbit,
Got
ribbit.
it. Yeah.
So that's like a big crochet joke, which is, it's really silly.
Hilarious.
But it's so true. Like you have to rip things out constantly.
Wow.
So that's part of the design process.
Okay, so you sometimes get angry because you're such an artist and you're, you know, sending off this thing that is such a part of you that you've lived with and built up, and then it'll come back and someone will be like, actually,
Yes.
you know, I'd like the eyes to be a little more round.
I worked on a project recently that that they had very, very high expectations, and I was very excited to have the challenge to meet those expectations. But the reality of trying something that difficult is that you are going to make mistakes. And so, you know, when you get the feedback that says like, oh, can you make this circle, you know, 30% bigger, or can you make this foot 25% smaller, you're trying to think mathematically in your head like, okay, well, I did 60 stitches, so maybe I'll try 40 this time, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's all math, strangely, with crocheting, especially when you're designing. It's a ton of math.
So when you do go out, what have you been enjoying about living here?
We actually just love the nature so much. So where we're from, it's not as nature forward. So we've been going on lots of hikes. We've been stopping at the ocean side and checking things out. We've seen all kinds of creatures that, you know, just aren't where we are. So like starfish and crabs, and, you know, every time we see a new thing that we haven't seen before, we're like, oh my gosh, it's a starfish.
You have created such a unique and, to me, spectacular life for yourself here. Would you have any advice for someone who is, you know, looking at what you've created and going like, oh, I really have something that I really want to pursue, but it seems too tough or, you know, impossible?
I would just say that if it's something that you're really passionate about, then putting in those extra hours and those late nights and all of the extra work that maybe you're not super excited about over some of the more exciting aspects of, you know, being an artist as a lifestyle, then it's just as worth it as any other avenue of work. So, and it can be, you know, just as rewarding and just as fun as any kind of career that you could think of.
Well, I'm inspired. I don't know if I'll make it as a crochet artist, but definitely just I've really seen how following your dream really can pay off. While Lee strived to build a profitable career from her love of crochet, weaver Joan Langevin-Levac took almost the complete opposite path. After struggling to make more products and get more commissions during COVID, Joan found that her creativity was suffering. So rather than continue to build on the business side of things, she decided to refocus solely on her love of weaving.
My husband and I were traveling, and we were in Ireland, and we were just driving around Ireland randomly, and we were thirsty, so we stopped at a cafe, and then it turned out that we were at a weaving mill. And then I saw somebody working a hand loom, and it was like I was struck by lightning. I was just like, I stood in a cafe in Dublin and searched out on my phone where I could figure out how to learn to weave in Nova Scotia. And I found a workshop right near my house and signed up while I was standing there. I have no idea, I've never had anything like that happen to me before, but it was just, I had to do it. And even before I learned, I ended up finding a loom online. And the looms have a habit of accumulating. You know, you get one loom and you think, oh, I could get another loom, and then I can work on two things. So there are a lot of people selling used looms. And a woman and her husband came and delivered it to the house. He put it together for me, and I didn't know how to use it. It just sat in my front sunroom, and I would go in and look at it and smell it, like it smelled like wood and cotton, and like it was just this great thing. So then I had to find a teacher who would teach me how to use it. My husband tells me I'm phase-based, so I go through phases of, you know, doing this or doing that, and I get really into it. I do deep dives, you know, and then I swim back up. But weaving has lasted. It's been about, I don't know, 12, 13 years now I've been doing it. It's a really interesting activity because it's a full body activity. You're using your feet, you're using your arms, you're moving in a rhythm that helps you to weave evenly. The rhythm of it is very therapeutic, I think, right? Like mentally and physically, it's a way to center yourself. My husband has PTSD. My daughter is a quadriplegic. You know, I had all this stuff kind of swirling around when I first started weaving, and I would feel myself, you know, get stressed, and I would go to the loom, and it's like a meditation. And as soon as you do something well, you think, well, I should make money at this. I should be a business. I could, you know, I'll be a production weaver. It'll be great. And it really doesn't suit me now at this time in my life. I just don't want to do that. I just want to make things I like. And if I put them online and people want them, then I will sell them. But that's not why I'm making it anymore. Commissions are pure creativity killers. I can't do it. I used to be so excited when I got a commission because, you know, it's like an ego boost. And then I would have to like go do the work. I hated it. I hated it so much. So for me, the key is to do it for yourself, right? Figure out why you're doing it and what you're getting out of it, and then proceed. You know, do not make it something it's not.
I feel like I want to play some music.
Yeah, it's very much.
It's an instrument. Yep. It's amazing.
So each one of these is attached in a sequence to one of these.
Wow,
or 4 of these, in this case. Each thread, each one is attached to one of these through this little heddle.
Okay.
It's very time consuming and tedious.
This really is like a piano or something. You actually have strung this whole thing just for one article?
Yes. And what we tend to do is we put enough warp on for 2 or 3 just to make it worth our while.
And what is warp?
This is the warp.
Okay.
And
this is the
weft. You will lift one and throw a shuttle through this opening that is created.
Ah, okay.
Because you never lift up everything. Weaving is just capturing a weft in between different warp strings.
Wow, and that allows for all of the variation. This is a lot of work to set up.
It really is.
How long does it take you to set up?
Well, this one took a very long time. Like a very long time, because I made several mistakes. And if you make a mistake threading here, you don't really notice until you start weaving. So then you have to unweave and rethread, which is very tedious.
Everything you're describing sounds to me like it could be very frustrating.
I have friends who cannot understand why I do this at all because of this. But if you take joy in the process, then you're cool. Weaving is not just the actual making of it. That's like the last 30% of the job, right? 70% is loving this tedious, painstaking design.
Wow.
So, because this kind of thing appeals to me, I think there's part of my brain that likes linear movement, right? So this is all linear, which is lovely.
Yep.
And you have to keep the tension.
So this has to be nice and springy?
Yeah. See how it just got tighter?
Yeah.
All you need to do is put your foot down on one of those.
Am I gonna do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Do it.
I do not want to mess this up.
Don't
Can't
worry.
mess it up. Okay.
Nope.
All right, which number
It's
should I
just
choose?
string. Doesn't matter. Pick your
Okay,
lucky number.
Going for 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Just pull it?
Yep.
Hard?
Pull it that way. There you go.
So I really need to pull it harder.
Yes.
Okay. I was a little afraid to go too hard, but now let's see. It
We
needs
can
some
try
force.
again once it's all the way in.
Oh, all the way over?
In, yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right. Now you pull it that way.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, but there you go.
That's fun.
Then you pull this with your.
All right.
Now a different treadle.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't want to hit you. I'm very strong.
No, you're not.
Aw, come on. So, are you telling me you do like 5 and 6 hour sessions at this?
Yeah. There you go.
What does that do to your body?
'Cause
'Cause this is weird movements, like
Yeah. Well, I think
for
you
someone
get
who's never
into a groove with it, right? And oh, it's so close.
yeah, I know. I just don't want to yank the yarn.
You get into a groove. You're using this hand for this, left hand for that. You're moving your feet at the same time. The only problem is if the phone rings in the middle of it, because
then
you
it's like-
lose,
Yeah.
like, where was my foot? What was I doing?
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about all the different yarn, because you have yards and yards and yards. I mean, it's everywhere. That's a lot.
I have this set up by Fibre and then by color. And the top 2 shelves are the shelves of shame. Those are acrylic. They're acrylic fibers.
Oh, okay.
If people want like baby blankets or something they can throw in the washer, I make it out of acrylic. So yeah, those they're not as nice to use. And then over here is cotton. So I use that for like tea towels, which I make a lot of. Anybody who like works with Fibre has some like really special skeins that they're saving for good, but you never get around to doing anything with them because they're so pretty. My goal is to not buy any more yarn,
Oh, really?
at least for 2023. And then we'll see, because what it's already doing is it's making me use things in color combinations that I wouldn't have thought of.
You wouldn't, yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, we'll see how it works.
Because it does set the tone for the whole studio having that much.
Yeah, and I'm trying very hard to sort of work on zero waste principles if it's possible. There's a lot of waste in weaving. When you take something off the loom, there's like a foot on each end that you can't actually weave on because it's just how you attach it to the loom. So I'm trying to figure out, that's why I started needle pointing, was so I could use the leftover thrums, they're called, to sew with.
So you're out here weaving during the day and then you're needle pointing with it. You never without your yarn.
Exactly.
And tell me where you find the patterns. Do you make these up yourself?
Oh, no. No, I don't. There are books of patterns, like drafts, they call them. And they're hundreds and hundreds of years old, right? I've got books full of them.
This is really like an all-encompassing. Do you call it an art or a craft or?
That's something people argue about.
Yeah.
Actually.
I thought I was throwing one out there.
No, but I think it's a craft because I'm really sort of using my hands and I'm using it for really utilitarian purposes. I like making things we use, towels and blankets and shawls and scarves.
I keep wanting to go like this, like.
Yeah,
It's
don't
just,
do that.
I won't do it, I promise I won't. I'm just having the urge.
I know. Yeah.
I'm behaving.
Yeah, no, a friend of mine taught me when you're looking at the draft, the way you set it up in here is the music,
Yeah.
and the way you move your feet is the dance.